In 1918, Germany was completely destroyed. The economy was in ruins, the currency was worthless, and the military was dismantled. Fast forward just 2 decades to 1939, and that same broken nation had become powerful enough to invade Poland and drag the entire world into the deadliest war in human history. How does that happen? How does a country go from total collapse to global aggressor in just 20 years? This is the story of the political failures, the economic disasters, and the cynical diplomatic games that didn't just allow World War II to happen, they practically guaranteed it. When World War I ended in 1918, the victorious powers sat down to decide Germany's fate. And what they created wasn't a peace treaty. It was a punishment designed to cripple Germany forever. The terms were brutal. Germany was forced to pay massive reparations, billions of dollars in today's money. The military was slashed to just 100,000 soldiers. No tanks, no air force, no modern weapons. Key industrial territories were occupied by foreign troops, and Germany was forced to accept full responsibility for starting the war. Inside Germany, this wasn't seen as justice. It was seen as a national humiliation, a deliberate attempt to destroy the country forever. And the economic consequences were immediate and catastrophic. Germany couldn't afford the reparations. The government started printing money, triggering one of the worst cases of hyperinflation in history. By 1923, the German currency was literally worthless. People needed wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy bread. Life savings evaporated overnight. This kind of economic devastation doesn't just hurt people financially, it destroys their faith in democracy. And when people lose faith in the system, they start looking for radical solutions. Enter Adolf Hitler. In 1923, inspired by Mussolini's March on Rome, Hitler attempted his own coup in Munich, the Hall Putsch. It failed spectacularly, and Hitler was arrested. But that failed coup became his big break. The trial was covered extensively by the media. Hitler used the courtroom as his stage, turning defeat into a national platform. He positioned himself as a man of action, standing up against a weak government. By the time he was released after serving just 9 months, he had become a household name. But Hitler couldn't seize power immediately because something unexpected happened. Germany started to recover. The recovery came through the Dawes Plan in 1924. Germany would borrow massive amounts of money from American banks and use it to pay reparations to Britain and France. It was essentially a giant circle of debt that only worked as long as American money kept flowing. For a few years, it actually worked. The economy stabilized, unemployment dropped, democracy seemed to be surviving. But in 1929, everything collapsed. The Great Depression hit the United States, and American banks immediately recalled their loans to Germany. The Dawes Plan fell apart overnight. Germany was plunged back into chaos. Unemployment skyrocketed. Millions lost their jobs. The government seemed powerless, and this time, people were ready to listen to anyone who promised a solution, no matter how extreme. By 1933, the 2 largest parties in Germany were Hitler's National Socialists and the Communists. The country was teetering on the edge of civil war. In January 1933, in a desperate attempt to stabilize things, Germany's president appointed Adolf Hitler as Chancellor. It was the worst decision in modern history. Hitler moved terrifyingly fast. Less than a month after taking power, the Reichstag, the parliament building, caught fire and burned. Hitler immediately blamed the communists and used it as justification to pass emergency laws. Freedom of speech was restricted. Freedom of the press was eliminated. Communist Party members were arrested by the thousands. Soon after, every other political party was banned. Then, in 1934, during the Night of the Long Knives, Hitler had over 1,000 political rivals murdered in a single brutal purge. When the president died later that year, Hitler merged the 2 positions and declared himself Führer, absolute leader of Germany. In less than 2 years, Hitler had turned Germany from a struggling democracy into a totalitarian dictatorship. And now, with total control at home, he turned his attention outward. Hitler's first move was to openly defy the Treaty of Versailles. He expanded the tiny 100,000-man army into a 1 million-man Wehrmacht. He brought back tanks and created an air force, all in clear violation of the treaty. But here's the shocking part. Britain and France did almost nothing to stop him. Why? Because they were more afraid of other threats than they were of Germany. Britain and the United States worried that France would become too powerful after World War I, so they actually helped Germany with loans and credits to balance against France. Even more importantly, both Britain and France were absolutely terrified of communism and the Soviet Union, and Hitler knew exactly how to exploit that fear. Hitler positioned himself as Europe's defender against the communist threat. He constantly warned about Soviet expansion and presented Germany as the only barrier preventing communism from spreading across Europe, and Western leaders fought it. Germany even signed a secret agreement with the Soviet Union called the Rapallo Treaty, where Germany provided military technology, and the Soviets allowed Germany to build secret training bases on Soviet soil, in direct violation of Versailles. When Britain and France found out, they panicked. Their response was the Locarno Treaties in 1925, which guaranteed Germany's western borders but said nothing about eastern borders. The message was clear: don't expand west, but if you want to expand east toward the Soviet Union, we'll look the other way. The peak of this cynical diplomacy came in 1938 with the Munich Agreement. Germany, Italy, Britain, and France sat down and carved up Czechoslovakia, handing a huge portion to Germany. And Czechoslovakia wasn't even invited to the meeting. The country's fate was decided without a single Czech representative in the room. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain declared he had achieved peace for our time. It was a complete betrayal. Soviet leader Joseph Stalin was watching carefully. He saw Britain and France repeatedly giving in to Hitler. He learned that Britain had been having secret talks with Germany about dividing Europe. Stalin realized he was being isolated. The West was trying to push Germany's aggression toward the Soviet Union, so Stalin made a shocking decision. On August 23, 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union, two ideological enemies, signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Publicly, it was a non-aggression treaty, but secretly, it included plans to divide Eastern Europe. Poland would be split in half. The Baltic states would go to the Soviets. Just over a week later, on September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, using a staged attack on a German radio station as the excuse. Britain and France had guaranteed Poland's independence. On September 3, 1939, they declared war on Germany. World War II had officially begun. But after declaring war, Britain and France did almost nothing for months in what became known as the Phony War. Meanwhile, Germany crushed Poland in weeks using blitzkrieg, lightning war, combining fast tanks, aircraft, and infantry. On September 17th, the Soviet Union invaded Poland from the east, claiming its share under the secret pact. Poland disappeared from the map. Then in May 1940, Germany invaded Western Europe. Denmark, Norway, Belgium, and the Netherlands fell quickly. France, one of the strongest militaries in Europe, collapsed in just 6 weeks. By June 1940, France had surrendered. Britain now stood alone. Hitler offered peace terms, but Winston Churchill refused. Hitler launched the Battle of Britain, bombing British cities, but Britain held on. The invasion was called off. By mid-1941, Nazi Germany controlled most of Europe. And then Hitler made the decision that would cost him the war. On June 22, 1941, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, betraying the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Hitler expected a quick victory, but the Soviet Union fought back with shocking ferocity. In December 1941, the Red Army counterattacked outside Moscow and stopped the German advance. For the first time, the Wehrmacht was forced into retreat. And while this was happening, the war became truly global. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States entered the war. In 1942, the tide began to turn. In the Pacific, the U.S. won crucial battles at Midway and Guadalcanal. In North Africa, British forces defeated the Germans at El Alamein. But the most important battle happened at Stalingrad. From August 1942 to February 1943, the Soviets encircled and destroyed entire German armies in the bloodiest battle in human history. After Stalingrad, Germany was in permanent retreat on the Eastern Front. By 1943, Allied victory was inevitable. The leaders of the US, Britain, and the Soviet Union met in Tehran to plan the final stages and discuss the post-war world. The most important decision was to open a second front in Western Europe. That front opened on June 6, 1944. D-Day. Nearly 7,000 Allied ships carried troops to Normandy in the largest amphibious invasion in history. The invasion succeeded partly because of Agent Garbo, a double agent who convinced Germany the real invasion would happen at Calais. Germany kept its best troops in the wrong place. After D-Day, Germany's collapse accelerated. Paris was liberated in August 1944. The Allies pushed east from France, while the Soviets pushed west. Germany was crushed from both sides. By April 1945, Soviet forces fought in Berlin's streets. On April 30th, Hitler committed suicide. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. But the Pacific War continued. On August 6, 1945, the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 3 days later, a second bomb hit Nagasaki. Between those bombings, the Soviet Union invaded Japanese-controlled Manchuria. On September 2, 1945, Japan surrendered. World War II was finally over. The cost, over 70 million dead, entire cities destroyed, and the first use of nuclear weapons in warfare. So what caused World War II? It wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm of failures. It started with the Treaty of Versailles, which humiliated Germany and created economic chaos. That chaos gave Hitler his opening. But Hitler couldn't have rearmed Germany without help, and he got it from Britain, France, and the US, who were so afraid of communism that they enabled Germany's resurgence. The Munich Agreement, the Locarno Treaties, the refusal to stop German rearmament, all were attempts to redirect Germany's aggression toward the Soviet Union. It was cynical, short-sighted diplomacy that backfired catastrophically. By the time Britain and France declared war in 1939, it was too late. The stage had been set years earlier. World War II didn't start in 1939. It started in 1919, the moment Versailles was signed. And the question we're left with is this. When Western powers spent the 1930s appeasing Hitler because they feared communism more than fascism, were they making diplomatic mistakes? Or were they choosing which enemy they wanted to fight? Because their choices didn't prevent a war, they guaranteed one.